This video is to help you with Excel Module 3 material. A few things we'll look at is review naming of ranges, and our last function I'm going to cover, which is VLookup. And then we'll look at charts, and I'll show you the details of creating a pie or column chart. And we'll look at some other kinds of charts and look at how to create a sparkline. And then look at all the elements of the charts and how to change those and change the different chart styles that are available. So I have a worksheet open here. It has some names and grades. And then over here there's a table. So what a VLookup function is used for is to look at something, some cell that has something in it. And then based on what's in that cell, you have some other information over here in what we'll call a table. It's just a little bit of data somewhere. It could be a few columns wide or two. This one is 2 columns wide. So we're just going to look at this area here. It's called a table. And then based on this data, we're going to look up this value and then come over here, and then we're going to tell Excel to do something. So what we want to do is look up a grade. So the grade here is a 90, and it's going to look at this table and pull an A. An A is a 90. So it's a very traditional grading scale. A 0 to 60 or 59 is an F. A 60 to 70 is a D. And so I've just created this little table here. So what I'm going to do is pull the letter grade. I'll just label it here, letter grade. And I'll just format this for us. Okay, so we want to use VLookup, and it's going to look at this number, because it's a value in this cell. Then look at the table, and then pull from the table. So VLookup is going to have 3 arguments. I'll just show you. So it gives you the definition right here. The first argument is the lookup value. So what are we going to look at? We will be able to write this one time and then copy down if we do it correctly. The first argument is what are we looking at? In this case, we're going to look at the grade. The second argument is the table array. So where is the table? What we're going to do is name the table. So we will name this area here, grades, all the way down through the A. And we're going to name that. So then we can put the named range right in that VLookup statement function there. And then the third argument is column index number. What that means is in the table, which column is what you want returned. So this only has 2 columns. This is column 1 and this is column 2. Where is the letter? Well, it's in column 2. So literally it'll just be a 2. So before I do VLookup, I just want to name the table. It just makes it easier because it's an absolute cell reference. So I could refer to $F, $3 through $G, $8, making this range an absolute cell reference. But if I name it, I can just refer to the name, and then I could use it on any worksheet that I want. So I'm going to select the range that I want to name. In this case, it's just this little table. It has some formatting, but it doesn't have to. And over here, I'm going to name that range. What would be an easy name to remember? Well, this one's labeled grades, so I'm actually just going to name it grades. So I'm just going to type in grades in the name box and then hit enter. And now that range has been saved. So back to my VLookup. I'm just going to write it out. So what value am I looking at? Well, I'm going to look at the grade, and I can just use the first person's. The second argument is the table. Where's the table? Well, we named it grades. If I start typing out grades, or I can go and look at my list of named ranges, but we just did it, so I remembered the name. If I see this icon in grades, I can just double click it, or I can just keep typing. When that's red, it's very visual. It gives me an outline of where my table is, so I can see that I did that correctly. And then my third argument is what column in the table do I want returned? So this is column 1, this is column 2. I want the letter, so it's in column 2. So I literally just type a 2. And then close the parentheses and hit enter. So we do know that a 90 is an A, just on a traditional grading scale. I can then use my fill handle and copy those down. Because of relative cell referencing, our A is VLookup B2, and then if I copied it down, you see it changed to B3, and it's looking at Darren's, and when I copied it down, it's now looking at Edith's and B4, but the grades in the two remain the same. So just to double check, a 65 is a D, a 45 is an F. Looks like I have a little formatting issue there. A B is an 86. So VLookup. And let's take a peek at a different one. I have another one here, and a little bit different. It still has a table. What this is a gym membership, and these are the client last names, the type of membership they're going to get, and what I want to pull out is from a table is the cost. And then there's just some other information for a locker and different things I could pull out from the same table if I wanted to pull out some other information. So here's my table down at the bottom. It can be anywhere. It could be on another worksheet. The deluxe membership, family membership, individual membership, the cost of those memberships, and the down payment is what we have here. You can have extra information, but I'm going to name this table, this range. So I'm going to select the labels and then the values, and I could just name it membership. You could name it anything you want that makes sense. So that table has been named. It just makes it easier so that you don't need to use the absolute cell references. So we're going to find the cost. So just think about it. This is my table. This is column 1, column 2, and column 3. Which column is the cost in? 1, 2, or 3? So remember, cost is in 2. We, of course, can see it. We can refer back to it. So let's use VLookup. We are looking at the type of membership. So we can do the first person, and because we named, or we're going to put the table in as a named range, or we're going to use it as an absolute. So we'll be able to write it once and copy it down. So the membership for Andrews is deluxe. It's right there. I could type B3, or I just clicked on it and the B3 came up. Either way. And then table array. What's the name of the table? See, I'm typing, some other things are coming up, but just look for that icon. Double click membership. It's red. It's very visual, comma. And in what column is the cost? So if I was looking for down payment, I would put 3, but I'm looking for cost. See, I could reuse this as much as I want. Cost is in the second column. And deluxe should be 575. Looks like I did it right. Just to kind of double check. Always double check yourselves. It's no problem. Now I only have, 8 people here, 8 or 9 different clients. You probably are going to have 800 or 900. So it would be a lot more useful to do it for 800 or 900 people and just you type it once and copy it down. Let's look at somebody with a family membership. It should say 1500, and it does. So VLookup. That just stands for vertical lookup. There's also an H lookup, which is horizontal lookup. It's done exactly the same. So let's take a look at a chart. I have some data here. There's some different types of charts. Charts are under insert, and there's all different types of charts. Pie charts compare pieces to a whole or to 100%. So if you had different locations of your business, and you had one in New York and one in LA and one in Miami and one in San Antonio, you might have 4 pieces of pie, and you could look at your gross revenues, and whichever location had the largest piece of pie would have the largest revenue. It's an easier way to look at data for some people, and what charts are is just a visual representation of data. So I'll start with a pie chart, and then column charts have columns. There's line charts, there's scatter charts, there's all different kinds of charts. Depending on the type, what you want to accomplish is how you pick the chart. It's just how are you comparing. So the most popular that are used are the pie and the column, so we'll cover those. And then I'll show you a neat feature that's fairly new to Microsoft Office. I guess it's been around a little bit, but it was new to me not that long ago. It's called a Sparkline. It's really, really cool. So we have some data here. This is a grocery store. We're looking at the sales maybe from last summer, or so we have July, August, and September. And then we have some different departments. Looks like grocery, dairy, frozen produce, some different departments. And then we'll just say that these are the sales. The numbers don't have to be formatted. I mean, of course, if you were showing some of this worksheet, you'd want to, make it look a little nicer and have the the commas and, you know, maybe the decimals all match and have some dollar signs or currency formatting. But just to create a chart, you just have raw data, that's fine. We're going to need some totals for the pie chart. You need the totals. So I'm just going to do a quick total here. And this is just the total. We'll see, these are the sales for the department. Right here, I'll just use that total icon, just put some totals in here. And these are the totals for each of the departments. So the dairy total for last summer sales is going to be right here. I think just for consistency and looking here, I will put some formatting on them to make them all the same. If I wanted a pie chart that compared all of the departments, I could look at the grocery, dairy, frozen produce, and seafood compared to each other. I could also have a different pie chart. I could create two or just have one or the other, and I could compare the months. So whatever you're trying to do, it just depends on who your audience is and what you're doing. Why don't we, let's look at the different departments and see how their sales compare to each other. The numbers are kind of close too, so we'll see how it looks. When you create a pie chart, you select the labels of what you want. So I want to compare my departments. So I'm going to select the names of the departments. So I've selected B4 through F4. And then those, whatever they are, their totals. So I'm going to select grocery, dairy, frozen produce, and seafood. And then I'm going to let go of everything and then hold down the control key and select the range that has their totals in them. So again, we're going to select ranges that are not next to each other. So make the first selection and then hold down the control key and make the second selection. So, and what the selections are the labels that you want on each piece, you know, what are they representing, and the totals for those labels. So if I was doing the months, it would be these three, and then the totals, those three. So the labels of, we're going to compare in this pie chart the different departments of our store sales. So I'm going to go to Insert and then Pie Chart, and then just pick the pie. There's a 2D and a 3D and all different kinds. So now I have my chart. A chart is an object, and we have two contextual menus that come up automatically when your chart is selected. So if I clicked off the chart, those menus would go away, so I just have to click on the chart. The first thing I want you to do, now this is an object, I could just drag it and move it and put it nicely. I'm going to move it to a new sheet, and I will just call it departments. So you can name the sheet now, or you could name it later. And so moving it to a new sheet just gives us a bigger visual. And if you were to put this on a screen, it would look a little bit nicer. If you're really just detailing, sometimes you're making slides, or you're actually doing a, you know, printing it out and putting it on an overhead or something. It just depends on how you're going to show it. But basically, when you create a chart, I've just moved it to its own sheet. You can all see how much larger it is. So let's take a look at the chart. What comes up by default, these are the pieces, and they all kind of look the same, but we have grocery, dairy, frozen produce, and seafood. This is called the legend, and the legend is what shows you what each color means. So this lighter blue here is the grocery, so we know this is grocery. The dairy is orange. And I'll show you some other things with some chart elements to make those stand out. Chart title comes up automatically, and you either, it will print chart title. It will say chart title, so you have to change the name because chart title is not a good title. We'll just put departments summer 2020 or whatever, you know, label it, and somehow that's just a title. Then the legend, and then this is the chart area. So to change the chart area, these pieces are very close, and sometimes it really stands out. Like one area was, you know, a lot bigger or something. Let me go back to my chart area and let me make this like 232. I'm going to make my numbers bigger just to show you what I mean. 283. I'm just changing these numbers. So I've made this, I guess I should do frozen foods. I should go vertically, not horizontally. Here we go. Okay, so like this one, frozen foods now is 962,000. So I will go back to my, lost my chart. I don't know where it is, so I'll just recreate it. Oh, no, I don't know where it is. There we go. So now we can see frozen foods is much larger. You see what I did? I just changed the value. So it's connected to the data. So when the data changes, the chart will automatically update. So in the other example, we couldn't see they were kind of all the same. So it was hard, but either way, there's some more things. So here's the title. Make sure you click on that and change it. It's just a text box. And then the legend, which, labels them. So some chart elements are what they're called when you want to add data labels or maybe put the different types of, you can put the total amounts on the outside or on the inside of the pieces, or change it to percentages so you can see what percentage each was compared to the whole. And then the legend, which is by default comes up at the bottom. You could move it to the right. So anything you want to change kind of visually, it's going to be on these contextual menus that come up. This design and format. Anything you want to do with charts, you can do there. So the chart area just has to be selected. You can also right click. I do a lot of right clicking if you're on a PC, and you can, add data labels or do different things, but everything's going to be on those menus. So the elements are the title. Let's look at the data labels. You can put the labels there. They're on center. And see, it puts the totals inside end. It just tells you where. You're just literally choosing the location. So here's outside end. You have some more data label options. You can have Excel convert it to percentages. I like the outside end, so you could see it better. But this, not only can you see what each piece is, you could also put the name on it, but you can see what the totals are. So when you look at like data, just a worksheet with all those numbers, sometimes people just don't understand it. But looking at this chart, I think pretty much anybody can tell which one's the biggest piece, or like which one had the most sales, or a lot of times you can look at like which one had the least amount of sales. So always look for some chart elements to change it. Another way, which is just really even quicker, is this quick layout. So just quick layout, you just click on it. In the pie charts, we're getting 7 different choices. So you just look at the picture. What this one is giving you is a title, the legend at the top, and then the percentage data labels in each piece of pie. So I just clicked it and see how it just moved everything. I love the quick layouts. Like you don't even have to spend any time formatting it. So you can individually do it by going into add chart elements, or you can just super quick do it with a quick layout. Of course, if these aren't your favorite colors, Excel's going to pick the colors. You can change everything. Everything's going to be done in this design tab. Real easy to change the colors. These are colors that pair well together. You can also maybe you like everything but you don't like the gray. Click on the one piece of pie. Let's say I want to change just the gray color. I clicked on the pie, the gray piece, and all of the pieces are selected. You can see the selection there. And then if I click again, just the gray piece in this case is been selected, and I'll just go to shape fill, and maybe I'll make that green. And so just that one change green. So I can individually change if I want, or I can change the whole color scheme. Changing the outside. So take a look at all the different selections for under format and design, but it's really kind of neat, all the different things you can do. But also you could, if you just want quick and easy, just go to quick layout and pick the one you like. Let's look at a column chart. So I'm going to go back to my chart. I can use the same data. With a column chart and a bar chart are the same, just the columns are vertical instead of horizontal. Column chart, what you want to do is select all the data except the totals. So it's kind of the opposite of a pie chart. A pie chart, just the labels and the totals, and a column chart is what I say, everything except the totals. I, of course, do not mean the title or anything, but So in this case, I am selecting even that blank cell there, but the months and kind of, it's a nice clean rectangle. And let's go to insert, and I'll just use a column chart. So 2D, 3D, you can do the bar charts, which is just a column chart to the side. They're stacked. You see these are stacked on top of each other. This way I'll just choose a 2D. You can always change the type of chart. If you changed your mind, you literally just go to change chart type and change it. Let me move this to a new sheet just so we can see it a little bit better. So here's a column chart, same data. We get a design and format. It's going to look a little bit different, but we still have the chart elements, the quick layout, the colors, everything's done the same. We still have a legend, but now we have what they're calling, this was it used to be the x-axis. We know this is the x-axis. It's now called the horizontal axis. And this, of course, is the y-axis, but we call it in Excel now, it's called the vertical axis. And the values automatically come up. These are, you know, lines, the grid lines too. You can have major or minor. These are just big ones that they just help your eyes go across the screen to look at where the tops. But this, you can obviously see by looking at this without even looking at any numbers that the frozen food had the most sales just because the bars or the columns are the tallest. You can change the colors. You can change the quick layout. Just like in a pie chart, you have more choices here. And but we have a lot more elements. So there's axis titles. So the primary horizontal. Right now, there's just the chart title that you have to change. But if you want to put a vertical axis title, it's going to be like US dollars, or just say what these numbers are if they're not obvious. It could be product sales. It could be, you know, maybe you have it in euros or a different denomination. And then if it's not obvious, I think, you know, if your company is working all different places in the world, you might need to make it obvious, you know, say US dollars or whatever the denomination is. You might label the horizontal axis here with departments, like literally it's just another chart. So we didn't have that in the pie chart. The actual chart titles up here, you can, you know, put where you want it. Data labels, be careful not to, normally we don't do a lot of data labels. I'm just using the visual here, but if I put it in the, you know, they kind of run on each other. The columns are close together. What I normally do, you can put them on all of them if it looks okay. But what I normally do with data labels, I'm probably in a meeting and I'm just emphasizing something. We're not necessarily we're looking at all of the data, but if I just want to emphasize the largest one, I can just click on the column, see how all the blue ones, which is July sales, maybe we're talking about July sales, all of them are selected. So I could add a data label, let me put it on the outside base of just July. See how nice that looks. If you start putting a lot of data labels in your columns, it just gets a little messy sometimes. I also could just do it on one. So I'm just going to redo that. So if I click once, all of July in this case is selected. If I click again just on this one, just this frozen foods in July is selected. And so if I have it selected, I can just add a data label to that one. That's not the one I wanted. Outside end, just to that one, just have it selected. And that could be nice. It just depends on who your audience is, who you're talking about. If you're looking at the lowest sale, you might want to compare, just grab the lowest one and put a data, but it's called a data label. And there it is. There's also these are the grid lines. These are major. You could have minor, see how it just adds more. And then of course the legend. By default, it comes up at the bottom. You can move it to the right, to the top, you know, wherever you want it, whatever looks good with your data. And of course we have the quick layouts. So, you know, this one will automatically add data labels and put the legend at the top and have the type. So just be careful, always look at your data. Not everything always looks good. So just some other. Now with a chart type, I said you can change it, then you can change the colors just like we did in the pie chart. Change chart type is right here. So I have my chart selected here. I go to change chart type. Maybe I want to make it a stacked column. I'm now making it a stacked column, and I still have the same data, July, August, September, but now it's stacked them on top of each other. So you can just look at your legend. This one doesn't have a legend. July is blue and August is orange, and September, but they're stacked on top of each other, stacked. You can even go back and you could switch row and column, which is kind of a neat feature in a column chart. And what it did was, instead of each column being July, August, and September on the, now it's switched axes, and when we're looking at each department stacked on top of each other. So that's just with switch row and column, kind of a neat feature you can do with the bar chart. Let me look at, okay, one more type of chart. It's really neat. It's called a Sparkline, and it's a chart that you put in one cell. And so I have here some sales, January through June. Just going to a different worksheet. I wanted to have a couple, I have like 6 different values for each item. So we have a bunch of products that we've sold. So let's just say this is our sales. So what a Sparkline is a chart in one cell. So I'm just going to go to the cell here. I'm going to put the Sparkline here. 2 different ways to do it. You can either select the data you want in it and then go into it and select where you want it to go, or I like to just put my active cell where I want the Sparkline to be. So I will go to Insert, and Sparkline is going to be, there's a whole, on the Insert tab, there's a whole section or group for Sparkline. So I'm just going to do a line. You can also do column. And it's going to ask me for my data range. So I'm just going to choose the first item here. You kind of have to, I'll just hit OK. So there's my little chart. It's really just a visual, but it's a really great visual, I think. So just to show you, this is the product that we sold, a half sheet plain chocolate. And this is looking at January. So January we had 10,000, a little over 10,000 in sales. And then in February it went up to 14,000. So we see that spike there, that little line that goes up. And then it went way down to 6,000 from 14 to 6. So we see that drop. So we're not looking at actual values or anything. But this is a great, there's a line chart, but you just put it in one cell. And just real visual you can see. And look at May. May sales are way down. It's almost at the bottom there. And if you could just kind of visualize at the bottom is 0 and the top is, and you can use your fill handle and copy that down. So we went from 19,000 for the second one way up to 92,000. So you see that big spike there, and those are called Sparklines.